Here we go. I went to Home Depot over in Virginia. It literally, listen, I'm just coming home really. Not been home that long. Don't really not use public transportation. And it literally took me 2.5, 3 hours to get from my house to that store. And the part of it, I ain't know, really didn't know. I had to have somebody write the bus down for me, what side of the street to stand on, everything. But I got there and did the interview. They did a mock run through and passed everything. One of the last questions was like, what if it's something you don't know? What do? I said, I'm going to manage it. Or someone who's been here long, and I'm going to ask them, listen, I don't know what it's at, but the customer's asked for this. Where can I find it to help this customer? They said, you got the job. You got it. All you got to do is go take a urine. I don't use drugs. I don't smoke. I don't drink. So I said, oh, that's a done deal. And on their application, it said, have you been arrested in the last, I think it was 5 or 7 years?
The last 7 years.
Yeah, 7 years. So I said no, because I wasn't. So the answer is no. So I want to take the urine. At the place they said I could take the urine. The urinalysis was submitted. Mr. Ellis, you got the job. I'm waiting to hear back. About a week and a half, 2 weeks, I get a letter. Because of our background check, we rescinded the job. And I'm saying to myself, if your application say the last 7 years and the truth is no, and I passed all the other things, then why are you discriminating against me and not giving me the job? And I'm gonna be honest, at that time, I had put in applications for probably about 60 jobs. It almost turned my life upside down in a negative way. Because in my mind, it was like I'm doing all I can do to get a job, to land a job. People tell me it's a one-day work here, would you take it? Yeah. It's a 2-day here. I'm taking everything. I didn't care what it was. If it's cleaning up toilets, if it's cleaning up trash, I didn't care. I wanted to work. I wanted to be free and responsible. And for me, it was like, I can't get through these barriers. So what do I do to support myself? And so my mother was working with somebody and who's become a good friend of mine, and he had a cleaning company. And he told my mother, yeah, I hired him. He hired me, came to get me for work, everything. And that helped me really from going to the streets.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Kevin McCracken, and I'm going to host tonight's show. That was a clip from a podcast that I co-created with Suave Gonzalez. That's Eddie Ellis from the Campaign for the Fair Sentencing of Youth. He's an amazing human being, a friend, and a formerly incarcerated juvenile. And we are so grateful to have so many people here tonight and hopefully watching the live stream. I just want to point out that every year we have about 600,000 citizens returning to their communities in the United States. The question is, what are we going to do? What do we owe them? Those that have served their time, done exactly what they've been asked to do, and have been released or paroled. What's our responsibility? How do we encourage them to create a better life for themselves, their families, and their communities? And I will tell you personally, this has been the last 20 years of my life doing this work. It is literally the most important work that I've ever done. And I'm so grateful to be able to do it. I own a company in San Francisco called Social Imprints. I'm a creative in resident here at the Battery. And I get to work with marginalized communities, individuals that have barriers to employment, whether it's they were in prison at one point, they have economic barriers, they have less than a high school diploma, And I'm really glad to be able to do that, but that is not enough. It simply is not. So we're going to talk about tonight personal stories, individuals who have very, very personal stories about what happened to them once they were arrested, went to prison, and more importantly, what happened when they got out. But we're not just going to do that and talk about victimization, how sad it is. We're going to talk about solutions. We're going to talk about organizations tonight that actually are helping right now in our communities. So our first speaker tonight is my co-host, one of my best friends, my brother from another mother, as he likes to say. And as of a couple weeks ago, a Pulitzer Prize winner. Then won an IDA award for the show Suave as well. Story about his life, produced by Futura Media and distributed by PRX, and just an amazing show. If you haven't listened to it, please do, although you're going to hear some of that story tonight. Suave served 31 years and 85 days in prison. He went to prison at 17. He is now the very first formerly incarcerated administrator at the Community College of Philadelphia, where he directs the I Am More program and helps other men and women get college degrees. I can't say enough about it. It's a joke. He came and stayed with us this week, and my daughter says, well, at least you don't have to talk to him on the phone all day long. He's truly become family. And without further ado, Suave.
You hear me? First of all, I just want to say thank you for inviting me here. I always wanted to come to San Francisco. Thank you to the people out in the live stream watching us, because I hope that y'all support what we doing. My name is Suave Gonzalez, and my story is the story of plenty of juveniles in urban communities. I went to prison at the age of 17. But before I went to prison, I had a life. I had a story. I grew up in the South Bronx, single mother, 6 sisters. At the age of 12, I witnessed my grandfather get shot in the head while he was giving me a haircut. And I grew up in a time in the 80s where we were supposed to live by the code of the streets. So when they asked me, do you know who did it? I was like, no. And that guy walked off. And I grew up with, I'm gonna kill that guy when I grow up. And I grew up with that anger. So my mother, she wanted to take us from the Bronx to a better place. And she moved us to North Philadelphia, this place called the Badlands, and put me in the heart of everything that no 12-year-old is supposed to be in. So I get there, me being from New York, I'm like, Philly is sweet. So I got involved with the wrong people. The wrong people meaning a drug gang. We was fighting one neighborhood because you could not walk from this block to this other block. Everything was like, you don't live here. Me being from New York, I'm like, you're not gonna tell me where to walk. So a fight broke out, and another individual shot an individual. And I guess I couldn't run fast enough. So I got caught. And I said, you know what? I'm not snitching on nobody. And in my mind, they can't do nothing to me because I ain't do this. So when I went to court, the DA offered me a deal. It was 5 years, piece of paper. But I couldn't read the deal. I didn't even know what it said. 2 years later. So I said, no, I'm going to trial. I went to trial. I was found guilty. They gave me life without parole, 10 to 20, 5 to 10, and 2.5 to 5. And it still didn't click when the judge said I sentenced you to life. So I went upstate, and 10 years later, I'm like, when I'm supposed to get out? They was like, no, you're going to die in prison. And I was like, wow. Then in 1993, I met my mentor, Maria Nahosa. She came to the prison to talk. And I sat in the graduation. I snuck in the chapel. And I felt like everything she was saying, she was directing it at me. So I told her then, I'm serving life. I'm from New York. What's going on? What can I do? She said, you can be my source. And the rest of the guys was like, she's a reporter. Why you didn't ask her for help? I was like, she can't help me. I'm serving life. She can't get me out of jail. At that time, she didn't know that I couldn't read. So she started sending me boxes of books. And as soon as I got out of that graduation, I got into a fight with a correctional officer and ended up in solitary confinement for 7 years. So I started getting books that I couldn't read. So I had my next door neighbor. I used to tell him, listen, I'll give you a box of Little Debbie's if you read this book to me. And he was just reading every day. He would read like 4 or 5 pages. And I had him do that like for a whole year. Every day he was like, you don't get tired of this book? I'm like, no. To the point where I memorized the whole book, word for word. And then I'll tell you what, I'll give you a cigarette for every 20 words you show me. And he started giving me words. By the time I came out of solitary confinement, I knew how to read. So I signed up for a GED program. And it took me 7 tries. At the 7th try, they said, you passed it. I was like, yeah, all right. There was no serious, you passed it. So I was happy. I was happy for that. And I'm coming out the principal's office and I stumble up on a class. The jail was like 2 football field, a hallway. Just close your eyes and imagine this. All the way in the back of the hallway is a room tucked to the corner. Lights was dim. And I'm like, what the heck is going on in here? And I see all these white guys. They was like, this is a college program. You're not ready for this. I said, I'm signing up. So I signed up. The professor told me, you ain't ready for this. I said, we're going to find out. So I stuck it out. At the end of the semester, he gave me a D+. I was happy. Everybody else got an A. I was happy because I didn't cheat. It was something that I earned. And the professor was like, if you're serious about this, I'm going to tutor you. So he started tutoring me after class. 17 years later, because it was a part-time program, I graduated from Villanova University with a 3.5. I wrote my first 5 books while I was still in solitary confinement and got them all published from prison. I started the Mural Arts Restorative Justice program from in prison. So now I'm calling Maria, and she's in Chicago, she in DC, she's all over the country, all over the world. And I was like, I want to be there. She was like, you could. Just imagine a better world for yourself. And that's what I did. Instead of fighting with the guards, instead of fighting with the other brothers, I used to tell them, I give up, I'm done. I'm not doing no more fighting. I started fighting the system. I started fighting lawsuits for other people. I learned the law. They forced me to become a jailhouse lawyer. I had no intentions of being a lawyer, but they forced me. And I became that voice for the voiceless, like Maria said. So every time I saw an injustice, I put it on paper. I filed lawsuits. And the guards was like, man, mind your business. I said, they are my business. They're my brothers and sisters. To the point where I was in prison serving life, but I wasn't in prison because my mind was out in the street. And I used to tell people, I'm going home. And people laughed at me. Like, yeah, right. I'm going home. I don't know when. So I stripped my cell from everything. TV, radio, everything. I stripped everything. I threw everything out. The only thing I had in my cell was a Foot Locker and my degree, because I had my cell painted all white, and my degree. And every time the guards came for checkdown, I was like, what you got that degree for? I don't know. Maybe one day they let me out and I could use it. And the other brothers used to laugh. But they respected me because they knew that at some point I could get down if you want to get down. You know, we could rumble. However, but that wasn't my mentality. But that's what they thought. So I had my whole crew from my old neighborhood. They all signed up for Villanova, and they all got college degree, all lifers. We turned a jail where people was getting stabbed every day. The young guys was getting raped in that institution, the 6th largest institution in the United States. We turned that into a college program. And the superintendent used to tell us, you got too much power. I said, power for what? I said, I don't get nothing with telling the man not to go eat and boycott this nasty food. What I did boycott was basketball, baseball, the little games that the prison give you to keep your mind away from freedom. And I used to tell the brothers and sisters, if you're not hungry for freedom, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get it. And people was laughing when we got involved with the campaign. Campaign used to write us, y'all coming home. Man, them guys just crazy. On November 20th, 2017, I was the only lifer that walked out of Grenfell prison. And people, you should have seen that. The whole block, 500 people was like, where you going? I told you I was going home. None of y'all believed it. I just told you I was going home. The only lifer. I came home on a mission. And my mission was, I'm never going to go back to prison. But I forgot one thing. I'm on papers for life. In the state of Pennsylvania, juvenile lifers are on paper for life. So I came home, I'm ambitious. I think I got my degrees, I want life. So I married the wrong woman. I got a job at the police station. That was my first job as a case manager. I went from being incarcerated to working at the 25th district as a case manager. And they was like, you got to be in roll call every morning. I was like, nah, I can't do this. So I met some woman, you know, we married. And then the problem started. She accused me of putting my hands on her while I was working at the police station. They got cameras and everything. Parole locked me up and took me back to prison. A year to the date I was home. So I get back to the prison, and I can say this now. I bought an illegal cell phone. And the only thing I could hear on that illegal cell phone was ear hustle. So the only thing. So I had the idea that I got all these recordings that I've been recording for 30 years. I'm going to put them in a podcast. I didn't even know what a podcast was till I started hearing ear hustle. So when they let me out, I told the state, y'all got that. But it's not going to be that easy. Y'all going to have to pay me for these 90 days y'all took me back. Because to this day, you cannot find a technical violation on why they took me back. They just took me back, put me in the jail, no paperwork, no nothing. When they let me out, they told me you got to get off the property. And now, and to this day, I still don't know why they took me back. So I made them pay me for that 90 days and a year after that. Told you they forced me to be a lawyer. So we put this podcast together. And people again was like, oh my God, here you go with your crazy ideas. The purpose of the podcast wasn't about chasing no awards or no fame, none of that. It was about getting the message out. That if you are in the state of Pennsylvania and you are a former juvenile lifer, you technically still incarcerated because you're on their count. That's all I wanted to do. But then people start buying into the podcast and listening. And then Kevin called. What don't we do? We did death by incarceration. And then people was like, oh, Okay, what's going on? So we interviewed a whole bunch of people in this room, right? Thank you for being on our show. And I tell the people, never give up. Never give up, because you never know. But again, I came home hungry. I'm still hungry. I'm not satisfied. And people tell me, well, you won 2 major awards. That don't mean nothing to me. I still got to get up in the morning and go to work. I still got to pay my probation fee, because if I don't, I get violated. I still got to give up some urine whenever my PO feel like he's big and bold. So I'm not satisfied. Why? Because we still have thousands and thousands of juveniles in prison that don't belong in prison. We still have innocent people in prison that don't belong in prison. And for those that don't know, the Supreme Court just came down with a ruling a few days ago about wrongful convictions. So we still have a job to do. I worked at the police station. I worked as a case manager. I worked in Reentry. I started a program in Philadelphia. I work in mental health. And today I am the administrator to community college to the I Am More program. And what we do there, as soon as someone come home, we make sure that they take their GED if they don't have it and put them straight into a college program. And for some people that, why are you doing that? Because I understand the significance of having an education. If I would have known how to read and write when they offered me that 5-year deal, I would have never spent 31 years in prison. I would have never spent that many years. And if I was sentenced, if I knew how to read and write, I probably would have got myself out of jail, because there was so many technical violations in my case. But because I didn't know how to read and write, I didn't know. This is why I do what I do today. And I don't get paid for doing what I do today. Community college pay me, but they don't pay you your worth. But I would do that job for free. Because people like Xavier did it for me for free when I was in. People like Eddie did it for me for free when I was in. They advocated for me. So that's what I do for others. So the topic today is, do I belong? Right? Yeah. Do we belong? What you think? Do we belong? I can't hear you. Yeah. Do we belong? Yeah. Because now I'm going to talk about the awards. When we started the podcast, people laughed. There's nobody going to hear that. Well, millions of people heard it. And we ain't even applied for the Polish City Award. They called me, you won? I was like, what the heck is that? I didn't even know what it was. But the fact that it was a former juvenile lifer, the first formerly incarcerated person to win it, it's not only a win for me, it's a win for every advocate that stood in them lines fighting for our freedom. And y'all should claim that, because that's a win for the community. That's the way it goes. It's not about one person. Have you ever heard the term, it takes a village? It took a village for the Supreme Court to rule in Miller versus Alabama that you can't keep a juvenile in prison for life without giving them a chance at parole. So why would I be selfish and say, well, I won that by myself? No, I had a team of people. I had Maria and a host that's been in my life as a mentor for 30 years. I had Julieta Martinelli. When nobody else wanted to serve as producer, they said, I'll produce it. I had Maggie Furlan. I had a whole team of people that said, you know what, we believe in your story and we want to put it out. And they did, and they gave me the best product that they had. So it takes teamwork. Teamwork to make the work done. Like Xavier always said, we can't do it by ourselves. We can't do it by ourselves. Kevin can't do it by himself. He tries sometimes, but he can't. He can't. You know, it takes the effort of our family. It takes me abandoning my family for sometime weeks to go out in different states to advocate. And sometimes our family don't understand why we doing this type of work. You home already. Why is you still talking about prison? And I'm like, yeah, I'm home, but I'm really not, because parole be here tomorrow to check your home, to make sure that I'm living in your home and not moved out. You know, and until the state of Pennsylvania eradicate life without parole for juvenile lifers, life without parole for juvenile lifers, and life and parole for lifetime for those being released, I'm not going to be happy. I'm going to use my platform every minute of the day to ensure that no other juvenile in the United States of America is convicted and sent to prison for life. That's the only goal that I have. That's my mission. So today I'm going to ask everybody in this room, everybody that's hearing us at home, that if you really about this work, if you are serious about social justice and transforming the system, I'm going to ask you for a favor. Help me put 100 guys through a GED program. You do that by donating $100. And I guarantee you that $100 that you are donating to put a brother and sister through college might be the next Nobel Peace Prize winner that we bring up here. Who would have thought that a kid from the South Bronx that didn't know how to read with an IQ of a 56, go to prison, spend 7 years in solitary confinement, learn how to read and write in his late 20s. So it's not that far away, right? I hope so. It's not that far away. Today is standing in front of you with the highest award in journalism. An award that journalists spend their entire life chasing. For a story that affects so many people in our community. You and you at home could help us prevent that from happening again. Because yesterday it was me, Catherine Jones, Curtis, but tomorrow will be your son, your grandson, your nephew, your daughter. We could prevent that from happening. Education, for me, is still the key. It's one of the solutions. It's not the entire solution, but it's one of the solutions for our young brothers and sisters out there. So if y'all really about this work, y'all can do that. If not, thank you for being here. We're going to have a good time, feel good time. But if you service, help us. Get involved. Because sometimes with these big organizations out there, what we get is a referral system. We're not really getting the help. You come home, you go. I know that because I went through it when I came home. You don't get the direct service. You get, oh, here, go see this guy, go see this guy. We don't provide that service. By the time you go to the third guy, you're done. You're ready to go back to prison. So it takes change, and change is going to come when y'all get involved directly. Not, I'm going to donate a check to this organization. If you're going to donate, make sure that you know what your funds are being used for. And not just I'm donating to feel good. Period. And with that said, I'm going to introduce the next guest speaker, my sister from another mother, my friend, and she is someone that I respect, someone that had taught me how to heal from my trauma, Ms. Catherine Jones.
Wow. Look, brother, we made it out. And I'm going to explain the significance of that statement because at the ages of 12 and 13, me and my brother have the unfortunate distinction of being the youngest children to ever be sent to adult prison in America. At 12 and 13, told that we were no longer children, that the decision that we made, our worst mistake of our lives, would define us and strip us of our identity. We were no longer children in need of nurturing. It negated the fact that we needed to be respected and humanized. Instead, we were given numbers and told that's who we were. We deserved to die in prison. We didn't deserve to walk among free society again, but brother, we made it out. We are evidence, we are proof of what can happen when an agent of change comes into your life and sees you for who you can be and not judge you based on your worst decision you've ever made. And I'm going to give you a few examples of those, but first I'm going to tell you a story because I really want you to understand what that felt like. At 12 and 13, my brother, who is my best friend, we got sentenced and the judge allowed us to have 30 minutes together before we would serve our 18-year sentences because we took that plea bargain because we were afraid that we would get life in prison if we didn't. We didn't know better. We were kids. And for 25 of those 30 minutes, we talked about everything but the separation that was going to happen. It's like a defense mechanism, things that didn't matter. But when the guard came in and said, you have 5 minutes left, and then we're going to take you away, it got real. The reality that I would not see my brother, my best friend, the only person that ever loved me unconditionally in my life for the next 18 years of my life, we decided that we were going to bite each other on the arm. And in our 12 and 13-year-old minds, that those bite marks will remain so we could not forget each other in the bond that we have. So imagine the despair when 3 or 4 days later, I looked at my arm and it was gone and the reality hit that I would not see him again until we got out at the age of 29 and 30. And for the first 10 years of my incarceration, I became a product of my environment. I became who they said I was. I had to survive inside this environment that they had. I became cold and unfeeling. I was 13, discovering my sexuality when I was 16, 17. So I had a girlfriend twice my age. If I would have been home, it would have been statutory rape, but I didn't need to be protected anymore. I was a felon. Guards wanted to exchange sexual favors for personal hygiene products. It didn't matter anymore. It's not sexual assault because I'm a felon. But then something miraculous happened. God sent a woman and a man, a husband and a wife duo came inside that prison and came and taught a class called Fresh Start Ministries. And I sat in that class and they asked me one question that changed the trajectory of my life. They said, "Who are you?" And at first it was superficial. It was like, I'm kind of cute. I'm smart. I'm athletic. I don't look like it now. I was then though. And then it became, I'm hurt. I'm broken. I'm angry. I'm tired. I didn't want to live that way anymore. I didn't know what else there was, but I knew there was more than being in that cell, in that environment, living the way that society has you living. And they handed me a Bible and they said, now find every scripture where God tells you who you are. And I learned I was loved, I was forgiven, I was accepted. And I embraced that truth and I digested it and that became my identity. So now this little girl that grew up in prison with 56 disciplinary reports was now a mentor teaching and facilitating a class for other victims of sexual violence. I became a positive leader instead of the one that got everybody else in trouble. They were agents of change in my life. It didn't take a lot of money. They weren't presidents. They weren't senators. They weren't DAs. They were two individuals that walked into my life and seen me. They seen my potential. They said, you have a gift of leadership. You have a gift of teaching. And they cultivate those gifts. So when I came home, I had this fantasy in my head that I was going to use all these skills that I had learned in, and I was going to come home to a fresh start. And the reality was society seen me with the scarlet letter F for felon on my forehead. I would go inside job interviews and they would tell me that I had the job on the spot, instant hire, and I always was transparent. And the hiring manager will always say, you know what? We're going to work it out. But then corporate would come down and say, no, she's a high risk. We're a fair chance hire, but not for that kind of felon, not for somebody with a violent offense. So then I learned fair chance hiring wasn't always fair chance hiring. And the disappointment got even deeper when I was pregnant with my first baby, my beautiful baby boy. And so now this minimum wage that I was so grateful for when I came home after working for free for years, I know isn't enough. I have another mouth to feed. I have somebody else depending on me. So then those no's and those disappointments it was a desperation. It was a grief. I felt like the mistakes that I made at 13 were now affecting my children. And it was like, can I ever get out of this cycle? And it wasn't a lack of ambition. I came home with more certificates and degrees than a thermometer. It's because nobody would give me a yes. So another instant of an agent of change that came in my life, I got a call from Xavier at McRailroad Bay. He's in here somewhere. Now my co-ED, my boss, my best friend. And he called me and said, I'd like you to join the Incarcerated Children Advocacy Network. I didn't know what it was, but I did know they said they were going to pay for me to fly somewhere, and we were going to have a gala. And since I missed the prom, I was dressed. I walked inside that gala like I was going. And so I walked in there, and I seen him being honored for his work and his advocacy, and he was someone just like me. So right at the cusp of identity crisis where I was like, who am I as a free woman? It was easier in prison than it is out here. At least I knew what to expect. At least I knew. Out here, I didn't know what was going on. I thought people out there had never been to prison were weird. I seen someone that had experienced that same pain of going to prison as a child, come home and find purpose in it. And I said, there can be purpose in this pain. There could be purpose in this trauma. And so then I dedicated my life to it. And I did it for 4 years voluntarily. And then 2 years ago, I received an offer to come on staff. And I now am the co-director of outreach and partnership development, innovating the same network that saved me. So recognizing that it doesn't take much. These are just examples of somebody who looked at me and seen my potential. Every one of you in this room can be an agent of change for somebody. All it takes is for you to see them, to believe in them, and to be able to do that now and get paid good for it. I get paid for it to now. These people are coming home. We've been so successful. We have over 850 former juvenile lifers home that were told that they would die in prison, are now home because of the work we're doing. And we've taken it a step further and say, now that they're home, we have a responsibility to make sure they are positioned to thrive. We do systems change, working with different corporations to inform their policies on fair chance hiring, so those definite no's become yeses, because that yes can change the trajectory of somebody's life. We do panels like this where we expose our deepest hurts and our pains, not for the sake of having you look at me and say, poor thing, but so that you look at me and say, you know what, if she can come out here and change, and they said she didn't deserve it, there's hundreds of others in there that can too. So let me get involved and fight to get them home, because I want that girl to be my neighbor. Because I'm like the babysitter in my neighborhood. And it's enough about me right now, because that my brother, that best friend I was talking about, I've given you the backstory of us, but what he has done with his freedom and his second chance is even more astounding. And even more so because of the fact that what he's never said publicly is that he was as much of a victim as our victims were, because I made the decision to do it. And the state held him accountable. I was responsible. I made the decision and I bullied him into doing it. And the very fact that he stands next to me, that he was in the corner crying at my hurt and pain, is a testament to his character and the power of love, unconditional love, and forgiveness. And so I'm going to open the floor for him to come up here and share his story of redemption and what he's doing now to make a difference.
Good afternoon, everybody. On a more positive note, it doesn't end there. Thank you, Catherine. She does a good job of sharing our story and being transparent with our story. And it is unfortunate, but like I said, it does not end there. And that's the attitude and mindset that I had while I was in there. From day one, I made up my mind that I wasn't going to become a product of my environment. I never felt like I was better than anybody, but I just knew that I wasn't supposed to be here. So I started, I didn't start playing spades and dominoes. I started reading. I started applying myself to get productive, to just become different. I was hearing the stories of what people did to get there, things they got caught for, things they didn't get caught for. And I realized that's not who I am as a person. But I was, for a little while, becoming a product of my environment because I was so young. So I started adapting to things to survive. But as I got older, I started seeing that light at the end of the tunnel. And I knew that one day I would have a second chance at freedom. And when I was given that second chance, I wanted to maximize the moment. I never had anybody give me a blueprint and tell me what to do and what not to do when I got out. I just knew I had to do something to stop from going back to prison. I'm not a street individual. I got locked up when I was 12, so I didn't have time to learn a lot of things that maybe I shouldn't have learned. So I applied myself, and I finally did get out. I got a job, I got my license. I was never given the opportunity. I was never, every time I went to try to get a job, it was, I was asked to do a resume. And on my resume, they have a section that says work experience. And I never forget the embarrassment I felt when I was sitting down. And I had to explain the little resume I had. It was like a resume of a 16-year-old. You don't got no education on there. You don't have no work experience. And he was like, "What's your work experience?" And I just kind of looked at him like, "Next question, please." Because I had been locked up since I was 12 years old. But I knew then I had to make myself valuable. I had to meet a need. It's like I got my first lesson in economic supply and demand. I had to make myself meet a need. The demand was great. I had to be a supplier. So I just said, "Hey, I can learn. I could do anything. Give me opportunity." I was begging and begging for years for an opportunity, and I wasn't given one. I was not given one. So I had to make one for myself. So I learned to trade by accident. I was an assistant and I was watching somebody and I said, "Man, I want to learn how to do this. I love working with my hands. I love being innovative. I love creating things." And he was like, "No, I don't have time for that. I don't want to be responsible for that. I just, want to do my job and go home." So I watched him for a year. I just watched him. My dad got sick, so I moved back to the East Coast to be closer to him. And when I applied for a job, they say, "What do you know how to do?" I told them I was a lead installer. I wasn't. And so I tell you what, we need a lead installer right now, today. I'm gonna send you out there with a guy that's been with us for 20 years. If he says you can do showers, we'll hire you on the spot. Needless to say, I put that shower in because I have been watching that guy for a year. So that was my start, but I wasn't content with that. I was still begging every time I wanted to move or make a decision or anything. I was begging for an opportunity, begging for an opportunity. I couldn't advance. I couldn't get ahead. So I started to make an opportunity for myself, like I said, and I started my own frameless shower business. I got an LLC. I got insured, and now I had a platform that not only can I do something to make myself productive, I can now give other people the opportunity that's been in similar situations that I've been in. They may have not been incarcerated while they were 12, but somewhere down the line, they were incarcerated. So now I can say, "Hey, people that have a struggle or that have a hard time getting a job, I can now supply them that job. I can now look past that record and say, 'Hey, I give you an opportunity. I can believe in you.'" And that's what we're doing now. That's what I'm doing now. and we're pressing towards it. So I give God glory for that. It's been an amazing experience. It's had its hardships and its trials, but we're pushing through. It's feeding my family and taking care of my family. I'm just in a position now where I can now hire people and give them the same opportunity that I had, overlooking those past mistakes. Because just like Catherine said, you're not defined by your worst decision. Your worst decision doesn't make you who you are. So we're pushing past and we're pushing for greater. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity to be here and to share that side of the story with you guys, and know that whatever contribution, whatever help you're doing, it's not in vain. You're invested in the lives of people that are world changers. They're advocating for the voiceless, the people who can't be heard. Like, you're hearing their story. So, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you guys for giving me your time.
Thank you. Go ahead. See here. Okay. So I put the number 7 up here on the slide because that is, according to the Fair Credit Reporting Act, the number of years that employers in the US are allowed to look back. Let me ask any one of you, when you applied for jobs, all of you had been in prison for more than a decade, almost 2 decades, over 3 decades. What happened when they did the background checks on you guys?
I didn't get a phone call.
It came back.
Uh-huh.
We sorry we can't hire you because of your background. I was hired as a case manager for the city of Philadelphia. They put me through the training. 2 weeks later, I left one job because they said you hired. 2 weeks later, I get a letter saying, due to your criminal background check 36 years ago, we got to resend our offer.
There's no protections for people returning from prison. There just isn't. So again, I ask, what is our responsibility? I say the easiest call to make is to your local legislature, because they're going to answer the phone. They generally have somebody that will talk, make those calls. Ask why. It's a very simple question. Why have people who've served their time, given back what society asked for, still being discriminated against? Why? It doesn't make any sense. We have 3 examples of thousands and thousands of people, millions of people in the US, 600,000 a year who return home, that most of them just want to be a member of their community and give that opportunity, be given that opportunity. So, when we say do something, there's very tangible things that we can do. We ran a little over on the keynotes, so I'm going to bring up a couple other people. We're going to talk about some solutions here because, the fact of the matter is that there are solutions. There are great organizations currently here in California that are now expanding across the US, and we have some other guests here from other organizations that I'll probably call on as well. But 1,719 state prisons in the United States. And I could probably count on maybe 2 hands the number of them that have real technology training in them. And most of those are run by the Last Mile. And I know someone from the Last Mile is here. Jason's here, so we'll call on Jason in a little bit. But people are being released without any experience in the current job market. They can't even open a Gmail account. They don't know what an iPhone is. I mean, it's insane. And we expect them to come back, follow all the rules of parole, right? Not get a technical violation, be a good citizen, but yet we can't get them into jobs that are going to pay them the kind of money and the salary that it requires to be a good citizen. So I'm on the advisory board for an organization that's in San Quentin called Prison to Employment Connection. And our executive director and 2 of our board members are here as well. And the program that we run is rigorous. It's for citizens, currently residents of San Quentin. It's 14 weeks. It's resume writing and workshopping on interviews, getting men that are either going to be going before the parole board or have a release date, the experience of actually interviewing. It's the only prison in the 35 prisons in California that I know of that brings employers in as part of the program. And we don't want to just judge programs on recidivism rate, but the recidivism rate of graduates of prison to employment connection is 1%. So, and I'll brag about that because it's a big deal. Preparing people to get out and become productive members of society should be the job of the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. But generally we leave it at corrections. So I'm proud of the work we're doing. I'm going to introduce Kate Leedy from an organization that works with returned citizens, talk a little bit about what she does. Go ahead, Kate.
Thank you for having me. My name is Kate Leidy, and I am the founder of Strively. We prepare people who are coming out of the prison system for careers in tech sales. I've spent my entire career working in tech sales, and sometime in 2019, I had the opportunity to volunteer at Soledad State Prison here in California and teach employment skills, and immediately recognized a room full of talent. The guys in my class wanted to know what it was like working in tech, how they could get jobs, how much money I made. And I thought these guys would make great salespeople. So I started Strively.
You've been able to do one program.
We're on our 4th program.
How many people have graduated?
We've got 23 graduates.
How many people were placed in tech jobs?
100%. We've got people working.
Can you repeat that? How many?
100%.
100%.
And
graduates.
retained.
And retained.
Yeah. So we've got candidates, graduates who work at Gong, Microsoft, Demandbase. They're making annual salary, they're making commission, bonus, health insurance, stock options, free lunch. Everyone loves a free lunch. All the perks of working in technology. And they're thriving.
And let me say, my wife works for a big tech company, which I won't mention. Well, Salesforce. And the highest turnover there is sales. It's a really hard job to retain people because it's a hard job and people are not trained well in sales. Yet we've got men and women returning who are getting trained in sales and being retained at high salary and commission jobs. You know?
Can I tell you why
Yeah.
our candidates are thriving?
Please.
There's a similarity. So people that work in sales are told no all day long. Everyone is saying no to them. People who are coming out of the prison, like that's all they hear all day long. They hear a no on the phone. They're like, whatever, I'll just move on to the next one. And they just grind it out.
It's amazing. Tara?
I am so incredibly excited to be here tonight to tell you about the wonderful opportunity of CROP. CROP stands for Creating Restorative Opportunities and Programs. I stand here as the executive director with lived experience, having served 15 years at the age of 18 and paroling at the age of 33 and really wondering, where's my place? I found my place with CROP. And what CROP intends to do over the next 3 years, after, please note, we won a very historic state legislative grant of $27 million to launch a very ambitious career development campus in Oakland. What that campus entails is no longer working in silo as we understand our current reentry system as it is designed. Either housing, workforce development, employer placement. We're doing it all under one roof. And we are incredibly excited over the next 3 years to take 400 individuals throughout California, the Bay Area, and Los Angeles through our incredibly whole person care process in 4 pillars. The first pillar is about personal leadership development, professional workplace development, before moving them into career upskilling into tech. So we're looking at UX design, software engineering, IT support, sales, etc. before looking at our employer network and placing them into whether it's apprenticeships, internships, full-time employment, and so on. And we understand how critical housing is. So that fourth pillar is the pathway to permanent housing. Each of our candidates will be receiving a $1,000 monthly stipend to take care of all of their needs, in addition to making sure their food and clothing and laptops and digital literacy, financial literacy. We are chock-fulling this entire program to ensure that individuals can have a whole person experience so that their reintegration back into society is full. We do not want a cookie cutter approach to reentry services or transitioning an individual. We want them on a career pathway that is going to thrive. So we're excited to launch this entire program January 2023.
So what time is it? What time we got? Wow. This went by fast. So we have a visitor here. I couldn't add anyone to the panel because we were full, but Jason is here from Last Mile. Why don't you just tell people quickly what the Last Mile does? Because it's truly incredible if you don't know.
Yeah, so the Last Mile is a nonprofit based in Oakland, California. We teach computer coding, audio engineering, and later on this year, video production to incarcerated youth, women, and men in 6 states right now, currently. We also have a scholarship foundation for the graduates of our program that can apply to have their children on the outside, whether their parents on the inside or return home, to actually gain a scholarship through us and also get a mentor for secondary education. We have a reentry department that really is designed by people with lived experience. Half of our staff come from our program. So we have this virtual cycle of empowerment and lived experience that's going back into understanding the curriculum, understanding the whole person, like Tara said. We really have this robust system that have really, we've been able to leverage technology in this space to really drive home livable wage jobs and a 0% recidivism rate.
So you might have asked a personal question.
Yes.
When did
Yes.
you graduate the program?
I graduated the program in 2015. I was part of the inaugural class in 2014. I came home after 13 and a half years, 2018, September 25th. And actually 3 weeks before I actually came home, I signed a work agreement, and I was actually in the prison to employment program where I actually got my resume done and my cover letter and leveraged it to actually sign with a tech company before getting out as an engineer.
That's
Say
right.
more. Can I take over?
And I was actually also, this goes to Suave's point about community, I was also in the homecoming project to come home for me to even take advantage of the opportunity because I was supposed to pro somewhere else. And it was because Tara got me a place.
It's full circle, right?
Yes,
6
full
degrees
circle.
of separation. I think when you invest in your community, you can clearly see how the community members are able to invest back into the community. I mean, look at, for such a time as this, you needed housing, you needed employment. 2 of the key organizations that has really set your trajectory on a path has now created a situation where you can provide additional assistance to your own members. That's ripple effect.
Yeah, absolutely. Community is one of our pillars also. And that's one of the things I think I really benefited from when I came home, because like having a job, having a place, but then it's that sense of community of folks, being able to go to folks that understand my experience of coming home, understanding the challenges, understanding some of the mental and emotional blockers, understanding what it feels like when you hear keys jingling and you think that it's the guards coming.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and this is all incredible because we are living in the age of tech, but we also have Curtis here to my left who started his own company, an LLC, in the trades. And the trades have been very welcoming to individuals that are returning, you know, and I think it's important to point out that there are some people that, you know, technology is not their aptitude. Crop works with people like that as well, doing work programs. But Curtis, why don't you talk a little bit about what you're trying to do? Because I think it's important that people understand that there are so many ways to help.
Oh, most definitely. It was a blessing to see that the business could survive. And then it began to expand, or had the potential to expand, but I didn't want to give the opportunity to people who already had opportunity. because of where I came from, I wanted to extend that opportunity to people who had been incarcerated or who had been in trouble in the past or who have a troubling past. You don't have to be locked up to work for see-through shower doors, but anything that we can do as far as opening up a door to refine character, to introduce them to the Microsoft calendar, Gmail, creating an email, like we include everything in all of that. So that's what we're offering. That's what we're doing. And the reason that it's important, because every time the opportunity does come up, I want to hire the guys, but they're not working for free. Nobody wants to work in pro bono. So what I'm trying to do is create a trained program that's training people in the trade that they can network, not just shower doors, but if it's roofing, if it's tile, if it's drywall, now they have an opportunity to take what it is they learned from my company and take it wherever they're from or wherever their community is.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Catherine, talk a little bit about what life was like before you got the job at the campaign, but then also the support that you've received as not only a member of ICANN, but really, you know, somebody that's been encouraged and sort of mentored to thrive within the organization and in your life.
Oh, hi, I love ICANN. Let me count the ways. As I mentioned earlier, it's mentorship is what saved me and changed the trajectory of my life. And as now having the role of now being a mentor to almost 200 ICANN members, I mean, answering like calls in the middle of the night, whether it's like relationship issues or I can't find a job issues, or, hey, my mom just passed away and we can't pay for the burial. And being able through the organization to provide direct assistance to them, to provide emotional assistance, to provide trainings, to teach them how to open businesses. That type of stuff is monumental in setting people up for success, to know that they have somebody that has their back. And like I said, it doesn't always have to be like a huge check written. It can always just be being there and just listening and seeing them for who they are. So I do think mentorship is one of the key components of successful reentry. It definitely was for me.
So why don't you pivot right off that? Because you're now a mentor at the community college. Talk about some of the guys and women that you're seeing and sort of the experience of helping them and watch that kind of like light come on.
I mean, I'll be the first one to tell you, I own an iPhone and I don't even know how to use it. So I use the Android. But, you know, in my new position at community college, I've been forced to learn technology like real fast. Everything in the college is technology. They got sites like Starfish, Chronos, and I'm like, what the heck is all this? But, you know, I managed to learn that and master it because my students that's coming in are people that's been incarcerated for decades. My youngest student is 16 in placement. My oldest is 81, served 42 years. So now imagine trying to tell an 81-year-old person, like, you got to go on this site and get your school lessons here and get this how you send your homework. But it's been helpful for me because I'm also learning. Because I act like I know tech, but I really don't. I'm constantly calling people, how do you do this? How do you do that? Because I found that going on Google and looking at these videos don't work for me. I need you to tell me how to do it. I call Kevin in the middle of the night. Kevin, how you do this? And we 3 hours different. But my students leave there with an experience because once they learn how to create a Gmail account and get into their account from school, they feel like they accomplished something. And to the average person out here, it's like, man, I grew up doing that. But you didn't grow up in prison for 30, 40, 50 years where you had no technology. I remember coming home. I'm thinking, I got a college degree, I'm gonna get the job. And I could tell you how many jobs opportunity I missed because I didn't know how to work with the computer. And people would say, well, you got a degree from Villanova University. Well, they ain't gave me a computer course. You know, because in the DOC and PA, you're not allowed to come next to a computer if you're a lifer. You're not even allowed to take a GED if you're a lifer. There's no program for them. So when the Miller decision came down, it was almost like get out. Some people didn't want to leave. The oldest juvenile lifer in the United States was on the same block with me. He didn't want to leave. And we both went up and saw parole together. He did not want to leave. They had to force him out. And this man spent 68 years incarcerated. So imagine you spend 68 years incarcerated and now you come home and they give you a phone and you go to the store and you got to do self-checkouts. And machines are talking to you. And for me, it was traumatic. And there was times where in the back of my mind, I was like, I wish I was back in prison. Because I couldn't deal with the pressure of not knowing. I couldn't deal with it. And I think I'm pretty rounded, but when I was by myself and I had to catch the bus and I had to go get a key card and I'm standing for hours trying to play with the machine and people looking at me like, yo, get out the way, I gotta get. I'm like, yo, how the heck you do this? Or I go to the dollar store and you got this self-checkout and I'm like, I'm looking around and people automatically assume like, you should know this stuff. Till you start telling them, well, I've been away. You've been under the rock? No, I was behind the rock. That's what I tell people. And that's pressure. That's trauma that you're dealing with. And if you don't know, it's something that could lead you back to prison. Not knowing how to work a phone could lead you back to prison. There was time when my parole agent would tell me like, yo, I'll send you a text. Why you didn't respond to this text? Wow, how you do that? And my response to them was, if you were to take the time to show me how to work the phone, then I probably respond to your text. They just don't know. So it is important that we educate those that are coming home and not wait till they come home. We should be doing it while they're still incarcerated. And you mentioned something about write your legislators. Some of these legislators are full of crap because they don't want to ruffle the feathers with people. So, okay, we can't really do that. My education in tech came from little kids that I like, listen, I'll give you $5, show me how to use Facebook. I mean, I'm serious. I learned more from that. I learned how to get on TikTok from a guy in Texas that I had to call from Philadelphia. Yo, Spence, how you do this? And he, he's like the teacher he is, like, Swabby, this is how you do it step by step, And that's why I love getting around him, because when I'm around him, he's always giving me something. Because even though I work in the college, I help people create emails and Gmails, and there's a whole lot of things about text that I don't know. I know the basics. I know how to survive. So I'm still a student. But when I see those students coming in straight from prison into community college, that's the first thing I do. Do you know you got to do your homework online? Do you know that most of your classes are online? Do you know you got to communicate with your tutors online and your teachers? And then the whole, like, how you do that? And that's when the education starts. So for those that's doing it and teaching it, much love. But we need more people doing it. We need more people to stop assuming that you should know this, because we don't, especially if you spend decades in prison. We need more people like one of my friends have become one of my best friends. Someone that decided that I'm going to take your show and do something with it, like Dave, that I could call and express to him like, yo, how you do this and how you do that? And, I'm trying to get here, but I don't know. And maybe an hour conversation just to tell me like, this is how you do it. Because he understands that I don't know. I'm not afraid to ask. But everybody's not like Suave. I'm going to ask somebody random. I have random people in the street like, yo, how do you do this? Show me. Lucky for me, they haven't run over my phone. But I do that because I'm not ashamed, because I want to learn. But a lot of the students and people that's coming home, they don't do that. They got this image where we still locked down, we still in that prison bubble. And if we don't provide that help now, we're gonna have the same conversation next year, the following years, and the following years. And lastly, we need more people that have the heart to tell politicians, I'm not going to keep locking these brothers and sisters up for dumb stuff. And I know that in every city, because in Philadelphia, we have Mr. Larry Krasner, and everybody blames him for everything that happens in the city. What the people don't tell you is that if you are a regular citizen and you ask Mr. Krasner in the street, then how you work this phone? He don't only show you how to work the phone. He will put you in a computer class and get you a program. They show you how to better yourself. How I know, because I've done it. I ran to the man in the street. Yo, listen, I've been trying to call you, but for some reason your phone. He said, well, your phone is on airplane mode. And well, how the hell you take this out? You know, I don't know that. You know, and it's stuff like that that it's funny, but it encouraged people to step up and ask for the help. So to all the brothers out there that's listening, don't be afraid to ask for help. Because if you say you're about helping people, when somebody asks you, you're going to get that help. So we need more technologies in the DOC. We need more technologies in the county prison. We need more technology in juvenile facility. We need more people that step up to the plate and say, you know what? You can come to my program for free. Yeah. That's what we need. Because we live in an age of technology.
Thank you. So we've just got a few minutes, and I wanted to make sure that if there was any questions, and believe me, I know a lot of faces in here, so I'm not afraid to call on people randomly. Got no shame at all.
Don't be afraid to ask the questions.
Hey, Kevin?
Yeah.
Question. Just curious. So, if you're close to someone who's, the term you use, that's going to be re-entering society, right? And you wanted to help. What would you do? Where could somebody help someone who they know is coming out of San Quentin? You developed a relationship with this person over a series of years. You know them reasonably well. What would be helpful?
Can I answer that, Ken?
Yeah.
I mean, for most people, when we come home, a lot of people think that we want clothes, that we want the car, that we want the girls, that we want the house. That's not what we want. We need a support system 24 hours a day. Someone,
a mentor?
Yeah.
like a mentor. We need somebody that we could call and say, listen, Bob, I don't know how to work the phone. Can you show me how to work the phone? That's what we need. It's not about having the clothes and having the fly sheets. It's not about that.
Well, you need that too, right? I mean,
We need that, but guess what? For me, personally, I'd rather have someone that I could call in the middle of the night, like I do all the time, 2:00 in the morning. And it's like, listen, I've been trying to get on Facebook or on this site, and I don't know how to do it. Can you show me? And that person, you know what Kevin said? Well, put your phone on here, they Skype me in, and we go step by step. That's what I need. That helps me better. You know why? Because it gives me a tool to sustain myself.
Yes, but you do need the necessities. And that's why a lot of people. Yes, but even before the phone, because in order to obtain a phone, unless someone is handing you one, because with a phone comes a phone bill. So now you have to, in order to maintain this phone bill, I need to start looking for work. I need a job. And people who come from where we come from, they're going to get told no over and over and over again. And that's why people are either reoffending or they're finding negative routes to obtain money for necessity stuff. And so you can't, it's a balance with both. You do need the necessity stuff, but you do need the mentor. You need the support system. That's so important because there are late night phone calls. There are, somebody who's just getting out and they just got that car that they've been saving up for. Now it's told. Who do I call? How do I get my car? It got towed. I parked in the wrong spot. So we've been out long enough and we know these things and it's common sense to us, but somebody who doesn't know, they don't know. So they need that support system and they need the people that are involved in the community and that are advocating for people and providing opportunities for people. They need those resources.
And can I just kiss upon that?
Yes.
I am a housing specialist and I am a big advocate of housing first. The reason is because I know.
This is after you get out of parole, because you go into.
So let's take it a little further. Before you're paroled, 6 months before you even meet your determinate date, if you're a lifer, you have an indeterminate sentence. You have to go before the board. A lot of nuances. I'm not going to get into it. We have to identify where you're going to go. And for me, over 150 letters to housing providers in California trying to secure a bed. 2 people wrote back. I secured a bed in San Francisco on Treasure Island. I bring that up for one reason. Many people cannot secure a location of where to land before they are released. This is a really big foundational piece to reentry services. Not everyone can parole home. Some people have different parole requirements and conditions that require them to go to a transitional housing facility, reentry, so on. So I say that is really important. My peers here stated about a social network and why that is so incredibly critical. Many of the people who have been around you prior to your incarceration may have moved on, moved out of state, California is expensive, and do not have the level of support you need. So how do we teach people to build their own social network that's going to work for their needs? That's key. But housing first. People need a place to land safely, securely, where they can build upon their trajectory for even employment. You can't get employment without having an address. You can't even get your ID without having an address. So I always say, and I try to tell people, housing is critical, but it also comes with a component of employment opportunities. And not everyone can just walk up with a resume you shared that is clear as day to get them employment. There might need to be some job readiness. There might need to be some resume building. So we're talking about all-inclusive activities that need to rally every reentry service provider together. And we're currently working in silo. So how do we bring every single person, organization, and entity, government entity as well, together to see why this is everyone's responsibility? Because it's not just one thing. Everyone's experience is different. The only thing in common we all have is that we're formerly incarcerated. Our circumstances differ dramatically. And how do we give people individualized service and care coordination to meet their needs so they can thrive? It's really about the assessment tools that we're using, the data that we're aggregating to understand individuals. And right now, we know that our reentry system is fractured. So, I mean, I'm not just going to toot my own horn. It's all about us, right? But we need something that is thinking about every pillar of a human being and meeting that need individually.
Question.
Yeah, thank you, number one. You're all amazing. Flavitt, you mentioned that you listened to Ear Hustle when you were inside on this illegal phone. I'm thrilled to be standing next to the guy who made that happen. I listened to it too. And one of the things, a recent episode was about the kids of the incarcerated and the support that they needed. And it, like the idea that you don't go in alone, that there's a bunch yes, the incarcerated person behind bars, there's a bunch of people behind bars when you go in. Can you talk about how we can support the people that are outside, like the children of the incarcerated. I imagine that's, I mean, it's a dual sentence. How do we do that?
I mean, for me, when I was in Gratisville State Prison, before I became, according to the system, rehabilitated, I was involved with everything in the jail. So it was easy for us to recognize what was needed. So we created a program called FACTS, Fathers and Children's Together. And what we used to do, we approached the superintendent and we was like, we don't want no basketball, we don't want no movie night, we don't want nothing. We want you to let us use the visiting room for fathers to have one-on-one, not with their mothers. We don't want the mothers involved, just the fathers, one-on-one with the children. And we created a program and we got state legislators involved and it took off. And what we used to do, it was a 16-week program where the father meets one-on-one with the child and learn the child. And you'd be surprised, some of these brothers didn't even know their children's favorite color, what their children like to watch, or vice versa. And today, what I do, some of them children are 16, 17, 18. So they come to community college. A lot of them been in placement. So what I do, I take them under the wing. If they don't have the $80 that it costs to get into the GED program, I just go out my pocket, yo, got you. Or I call a couple of friends, yo, I got a couple of young kids that need to get in the program. That's what I do because I understand that a lot of these organizations, they put you through, you know, the ringer. You got to go to this person, we got to go to that person, we got to fill out this application just to get a child into a GED program that could perhaps save that person from ending up in the same prison with their father or mother. I know plenty of brothers that are serving life with their fathers and grandfathers in prison. I know plenty of them. They call me on the phone every day. So I do that because I care. I do that because I know some of their fathers and mothers. And again, I ask my city, what are you doing for the children? We always talk about we got to save the children. But it seems like the children of incarcerated parents get a bad deal because they come with the stigma, your mother and father are in prison for XYZ. And they shouldn't have to suffer the consequences for what a mother and father did. But they do. They do. So it's forced on us, those who've been in the inside, to come home, not only advocate for them, but look out for them. I always say it. I'm not only a college administrator, I am an Uber driver, I am somebody's father, I am somebody's grandfather, I am somebody's old head, I am somebody's poppy, you know, whatever they call. I respond to it. You know why? Because if I would have had someone when I was 14, 16, that tell me, yo, you can go to school, you can learn how to read and write, I probably would have never been in jail. So when I bump into somebody that's 14, 15, 16, I'm looking at myself. That's a reflection of myself. And like I said when I gave my speech, I don't ever want to see another juvenile in the United States of America, this so-called beautiful country, end up in prison because they don't have an education. That can't keep going on.
I'm sorry, we are out of time. Yeah, I know this could go on all night. Yes, I know.
Where's the after party?
We can hang here for a minute. We got a half hour. So if people have questions, I know, but I got a commitment to the battery here. I got to keep up, and I got to be the bad guy as well as the good guy.
So can we take a few more questions? I've seen a few hands.
I know we
Can I just say one quick thing?
sure.
I really appreciated the question you asked about an individual. I also want to say though that for those that work at corporations, companies, businesses, they have a responsibility as well. We actually have a very robust partnership with Verizon, where we actually match Verizon volunteers as individual coaches and mentors with our ICANN members to do all kinds of professional coaching, including tech. They pay us to get laptops, et cetera. So I just want to offer that as well. There are a lot of ways that corporations and companies can also provide that mentorship and professional coaching. And I
agree with that.
Thank you, Anna.
But as someone that works in partnerships, we had conversations with y'all, and one of the things that Verizon said is that they don't want violent offenders.
Well, that's not true, because they just,
Yeah.
actually, they
I'm
hired
talking
one
about
who
the-
started today.
This
Our first ICANN member started today. Working with
I
Verizon.
had conversations with your
Well,
team.
we can talk about it.
Yeah, Hey, so
We know about the bureaucracy,
yes, so,
but we're
so let,
we're all working towards a brighter future.
let me just say this before we close. I know there are members of companies, employers in this room, and I know there are people watching. I know what can be done because we've done it every day since the inception of my company. What I didn't share at the beginning of this show is I also spent some time, not in prison, but in county jail, and was a heroin addict and lived on the streets right here in San Francisco. And I feel like if I can do it, anyone can, as far as recovery, because I was not in a good place, to say the least. As business owners, as employers, as members of the community with spouses, children, mothers, aunts, cousins that do all of those things, the best we can do is ask, can you employ at least one person? And see how it goes. I will say in my experience, and this is 22 years of doing fair chance employment, we were just called crazy when I started doing this because there was no such thing as fair chance employment. It did not exist.
Yeah.
That I have never had a more loyal, hardworking, intelligent, driven workforce in all the years I've been in businesses. So that is the gauntlet I will throw down. I'm challenging people who hire, who work in businesses that can, which is every business, to change the paradigm. Because this is the success up here, but for this, there's thousands of people that end up going back. And our recidivism rate in California is in the high 60s, and that is insane. So we have an opportunity here, all of us. And I just want to thank and give these panelists a hand because it's an honor for me to work with all of them in whatever way that we do and know them. And there are hundreds of thousands more out there that have similar stories that need the same kind of love and mentorship. So thanks to everybody for coming.
Hi. Oh my God, thank you so much for sharing. Curtis, I told Catherine.